One essential component of running a business, particularly a service business, is to have enough leads so that you can have enough projects and receive enough money to fund the business, make it successful, and continue operating in the market. As Daniel Priestley says, for example, when it comes to leads, you want to follow the LAPS process. So you want to have enough leads, set appointments, give presentations to those leads, and then close sales at a certain rate that is sustainable and successful for you to sustainably run your business. One of the ways to manage leads is to have a sales pipeline, which might be built in Notion. And one of the ways to get leads into that pipeline might be to get contacts from your website, forms, into your sales pipeline as just one of many possible sources where your leads might come from as you expand your business. In this video, we are looking at how you can connect Webflow forms from your website, if you use Webflow, into your Notion sales pipeline using a real example of a sales pipeline from the 24 assets template that is available for sales. You can find it in the description of this video. So we get form submissions from your website in Webflow in this case, and then we send that data to the Notion sales pipeline so that you or your sales reps can process those leads and continue the process of sales and business development. Here is a web form built on a Webflow website. I'm going to submit this and show you how it works, and then we can go through the configuration of the automation. So I'll submit this form, the make scenario runs, and the data feeds into the deals pipeline in Notion. So I can see a deal in here. It's a new deal. There is the name, the quarter automatically added, and there is the contact that was automatically created as well by the automation. And as a salesperson or as a business owner, I can come here and manage all the deals in one single place and also see a breakdown of all the deal information. If I click on the contact, that's a contact page created. So I can set the contact type and additional info, which might also be fed by the form that's submitted on your website. That's certainly a possibility. In this example, because it's an example, a demo, I'm demonstrating a very simple form with just name and email address. But yes, it can be customized as much as you want. If you have many fields that you let the potential customer submit, then you can save all that data in Notion. That is possible. You might also use an AI agent, for example, to pre-populate some of your data in the CRM to give you more info on the contact, on the deal, on the company. So those are all customizations that, yes, are possible, but it's not included in this video because I need to generalize just to show you the concept and the principles. So let's go through the implications of this and the make scenario. The first implication of this automation is that your website is built in Webflow. For example, here is an example website. In Webflow, we can have forms like this one here that can get data from the submitter. We can include many fields in a form, including drop-downs, rich text, and whatever we need. The automation in Make gets data from any form on the website. But you can see that in Webflow, we can give an ID to the form or a name. And this name is sent to the Make automation with all the data included in the form submission. So if we wish to filter for specific forms, that is possible by filtering on the form name, because sometimes you might have a contact form on the website where you get general inquiries, maybe a support form. So different forms, different names, and we can filter. That's at a simple level. Second thing is that you see here, there is a webhook that is sent on every form submission. This is automatically generated by Make whenever we establish a connection with Webflow. Second implication is that we have a deals database where we manage the sales pipeline with all the stages and info that you need for your leads or deals. And there is a contacts database where we store people. Importantly, in the contacts database, we have an email address that we can use to match that person, and we have a relation property to the deals database. So each deal can have one or multiple contacts associated with it. When it comes to the deals database, we need a name, we need a relation to the contacts, so it's a two-way relation. Here we can also pre-populate the source via the automation, and that's pretty much everything that we need for the deal database: a name and the contacts relation and the source. That's for the example that I'm showing. That is, if you want to build this in a customized manner, then that would be a different job. So these databases are part of the 24 assets, but you can build them yourself, or if you already have them in your Notion workspace, you can use your existing ones. So two options: either you can purchase a 24 assets template or just build them yourself or use your existing ones. Now let's look at the make scenario, which is also available in the description of this video as a template that you can easily duplicate. And there will be a wizard guiding you through all the connections and steps along the way. The first thing is a watch events module from Webflow. In here, we create a webhook. The webhook is a way to instantly get data from your Webflow site. When we set up a webhook connection in here, we need to select the form submission event, because there are different events that might be sent to a Webflow webhook. And in this case, we just want to have form submissions. Then we select your website, and then you have a webhook. That also shows up, as I showed you earlier, in Webflow, wherever you have form blocks. So then when we receive a form submission, the data looks like this. You have the data and all the fields, and you have some metadata here, such as the name that we can use to filter for specific forms. We also have the ID, the form ID, which might be a better filter, so that if we change name of the form in the future, the filters do not break. Then there are a few steps for the Notion CRM part of it. First, we create a deal. We assume that every form submission is a deal for simplification purposes for this template. So we create a deal, and here then I use the database ID from my deals database in Notion, and then in the name I set the name that was submitted in Webflow plus quarter, and then I format the submitted at date as a quarter. That's just a convention to name deals in a standardized manner, but it doesn't have to be this way. So if you have a different manner to name deals and track leads, then that's perfectly fine. We can also fill out the email address in here if we wish. In here we can also fill out the source, which could be a website, and the status is automatically set in Notion as new deal because it's a status property, so we don't need to fill that out. The second module is the contact. So first we create a deal, then we search for the contact by email, and then if the contact doesn't already exist, then we create it and link it to the deal. If the contact already exists in our CRM, then we just update the contact by linking the new deal. So in here it's a search objects module with the contacts database ID in here, and we filter by email equals the email address input field from Webflow. Here you can see I'm using an if empty formula or function, but that's not really relevant. I'm just using it because of how my form field names are structured. So in here, as you can see in the example that we ran, 0 bundles were output, which means the contact doesn't exist. So the automation continued only on this route. Here there is a filter, page ID doesn't exist, and then we create contact, inputting the contacts database, and then we have the name from the form. The deals, we link it by mapping the database item ID from deals. Contact type, it could be lead here, for example, and then throughout these stages, we can change it dynamically via Notion automations or make scenarios. And we also map the email address from the form submission. If the contact existed instead, we update it. So we get the database ID from the previous one, just to dynamically map it. The page ID from the previous one as well. And then we update the deals property, that's a relation type, by adding the new deal, so database item ID, to the existing deals, because maybe that contact already has some deals related to it. So instead of overriding that, we want to add the new deal to that list of related deals. That's all there is to it, to this basic templated version. Here you can also find 2 break modules. Break is a way to, if there is an error, sometimes there might be a 500, meaning a timeout error that's not really within our control. That's a server error from the Notion API, for example. And if that happens, these break modules try 3 times every 1 minute. And then the executions are stored in history, and if they are incomplete, meaning if they were not successfully completed, then we can rerun them manually if needed. So this is only an error handling convention that I'm using here with these break modules. To make sure that they work, once you have this scenario, you will need to activate allow storing of incomplete executions yes, so that the break modules can work. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Check the description for relevant links. If you wish to work together, contact me via the website form. See you in the next one.